This beautiful silhouette is the Aegis Eclipse, a stealth bomber often only seen when it's already too late. Carried in its concealed bomb bay and its underbelly are 3 size 9 torpedoes, just one of which is capable of taking out nearly any ship in the game in one shot. Hey guys, Morphologist here, and in this video I'm going to explain to you why I believe size 9 torpedoes are not overpowered, but are actually still imbalanced. We'll start off with a refresher for those of you who may not be familiar with the problem with torpedoes in Star Citizen, and then we'll go into my possible solutions, which will hopefully spark some conversation and ideas in the comment section below. Maybe even provide a platform for those of you who have had some ideas for a while of how to fix the issue. Oh, and if you think I did a good job by the end, make sure you hit that subscribe button to show your support. It really helps me grow the channel. You can also find me over on my Twitch channel live every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So punch the throttle and spool up your quantum drive, guys, because that shadow out of the corner of your eye was not your imagination. Currently in Star Citizen, we have 2 ships capable of carrying size 9 torpedoes. The Eclipse you saw earlier in the video, and this, the Retaliator, which can carry 3 more, totaling 6 size 9s. Torpedoes currently come in 3 flavors. You've got EM, IR, and cross-section. EM goes after electromagnetic signals, IR, infrared signals, and then you have the cross-section, which basically takes into account the size of your ship on radar and goes after that. EM and IR torpedoes are pretty incredible. You can hit targets out to 50k if you're able to lock onto one, but those can generally be avoided by using countermeasures. Cross-section, on the other hand, requires you be a lot closer, but they have an added bonus that they will hit the target no matter what countermeasure you employ. And with the changes in 3.10, you can now no longer outrun them, which means your only option is to either shoot them down if you're able to, or jump out. Neither of which are very practical solutions in the seconds you have to react. Smaller ships, of course, will stand more of a chance. You may be able to dodge the size 9 repeatedly before it runs out of fuel. But one mistake, and yes, even if you're in a fighter, a size 9 will do a 180 and still hit you. Fly an even larger ship and, well, there's absolutely no chance. You probably won't be able to align and jump out in time, and there's no way you're going to be dodging it, so it's just a matter of time before you explode. Now, for many of you, you probably haven't encountered torp ships that much in PvP, but for me, as I'm a bigger target in general when people see me on the server, I have gotten stream sniped quite a bit. In fact, I get stream sniped pretty much every single time I stream by the same group of people. Their method of choice when not pad ramming me in a safe zone is to camp out an area they know I'm going to by watching my stream and then torp me, and only me, and then jump out. They're not interested in fighting, all they want to do is grief me on stream, and they make that pretty clear in the chat after they do so. And unfortunately, because of the way torpedoes work, there's really no amount of group that can save me. Escorts can be there to try to defend against fighters, but if a torp ship specifically targets me, there's nothing they can do. I'm pretty much dead. So by now you're probably thinking, why on earth would I start off the video then saying that torpedoes are not OP if I am repeatedly being killed on stream with them and there's nothing I can do to avoid them? Well, believe it or not, I think that torpedoes are doing their job. Save for being able to do 180s and still hit small fighters, they should be able to take out large vessels. A single torp bomber should be able to one-shot large ships. So then if nerfing torpedoes isn't the solution, then what is? Enter the little Terrapin. This is the scanning ship of the UEE. Its main purpose is to scan out large swaths of space and scan for either objects or enemy vessels. And it ties into my solution, which I believe is a more holistic approach to solving the issue of bombers. You see, in World War I, when U-boats were first introduced to the battlefield, they were able to take out huge amounts of vessels before they were destroyed, and in some cases they were never destroyed. There was one U-35 boat that was known to take out 224 vessels before the end of World War I, and it was never destroyed. When World War II rolled around, the Allies were careful to develop countermeasures for these U-boats, understanding that they were incredibly devastating to any fleet. Destroyers would be positioned around major assets such as aircraft carriers to make sure that they could scan for these things underwater to protect the main fleet. This is because commanders understood that being reactive to U-boats was going to lose vessels, and instead being proactive would save lives. And that's the exact approach that we need in Star Citizen. We are very much in the World War I stage of the game, where there's no counter to U-boats. And while we do understand through ships like the Terrapin, the Hornet Tracker, the Aquila, and even, yes, the Carrack, that we will have long-range scanners, there hasn't been much discussion on CIG's part in what role these might play in the battlefield. Most of it's just implied, and so that's the subject of this video. For me, I want to talk to you guys about how I think long-range scanners could help us solve the issue of torpedo boats, and how it might create an enjoyable mechanic for both sides of the fight that involves skill. So here's how I think it might work. So right now you've got your short-range scanners, active and passive, the ones that we currently have in the game, which help you detect ships within your immediate vicinity, ships that could be within your weapon range or could be in weapons range of you. Long-range scanners, however, would be a little bit different. Their purpose would be to detect vessels and things much further away, and would require a lot more space and power to run. As such, they have vessels that have entire sections of the ship dedicated to this equipment, like here on the Terrapin or on any of the other ships I mentioned. Understandably, if one of these ships could detect too far away, then it would never be feasible for a stealth ship or a bomber to get close enough to actually use their payload, and that's not exactly how I see it working. I don't think that a ship like the Terrapin should be able to scan an entire star system. Rather, it should be a limited area, and this sphere of scanning ability should be determined by a metric of time to respond. If you have a ship with long-range scanners able to ping and look for ships further away, you should be able to increase the response time you have so that you're not reacting in seconds to a vessel just off your port bow with torpedoes. Rather, you have maybe half a minute to respond and decide what to do. Understandably though, the target reaction time should be something that is taken into consideration with balance. For example, it wouldn't be very fun or balanced for the bomber if the reaction time was sufficient enough for the vessel to jump out before they arrived. Rather, for example, the most balanced approach could be to allow enough time for the bomber to get within range of the vessel that it's targeting, but maybe not enough time to target it, requiring a mantis that would tag along to tie down the target so that the bomber could have the time it needs to lock on. As more mechanics come into Star Citizen, this response time could be augmented. For example, with the introduction of an E-War ship capable of jamming sensors, you could reduce the response time given for a scanning ship so that now, if there's no E-War ship present, the bomber has a better chance to hit the target. But none of this takes into account the actual minigame of scanning, and I think that too could play a role in your ability to spot ships before they get there. Here's how it might work. Say I've got my fleet around Hurston and I want to be careful not to be spotted by any torpedo bombers, or maybe they know where I am because they're watching my stream. If I set my scanner to 360 degrees in a sphere, then I've got about 5 seconds to respond. But if I'm a bit more predictive about where I think they might be coming from, maybe I set it to a more narrow angle, like 90 degrees, and get 10 seconds of response if I'm lucky. Hell, maybe I'm really skilled and I know exactly which moon or planet they're coming from, so I narrow it down even further and give us 15 seconds of potential response time. But I think you get the concept here from this oversimplified diagram. I could see this type of system also involving things like triangulation, so that if you've only got a single vessel, its range and ability to scan down a target's location would be more limited. But if you had more vessels to scan a given area, you could triangulate a vessel's position and perhaps even type more precisely at a further distance. But the gist of all of this is that rather than trying to nerf torpedo boats, which are behaving in my mind as I think they should, we need more countermeasures that are preventative rather than reactive. So not things like, say for example, PDCs, because that is more of a last-minute ditch effort to try to avoid a torpedo. Giving us the ability to use long-range scanners actively to scan down targets, I think creates a more balanced atmosphere. That way, in order for me to get caught off guard, I need to be careless, not using long-range scanners when I know that I'm a high-value target or I'm flying something very valuable. In fact, I think a system like this is so important that if we don't have it before we have things like persistent inventory that's physicalized in our ships, that people are going to be losing their things a lot more than they should. Imagine, for example, that your org finally saved up enough money to buy a capital ship in-game for you guys to call home, and then suddenly, without warning, 3 guys jump in with retaliators and blow it up in a few seconds. Without proactive preventative measures, this is a scenario that will definitely happen once they come into the game if we don't have long-range scanners such as I've described here before then. Of course, I think that the response time should still be augmented by stealth capabilities, so a stealth ship would give you less time to react for a long-range scanner, but would still work much the same as it does right now for short range, being very hard to detect unless you're very close. This gives a chance for both parties to be either skilled or unskilled to determine the outcome of a battle, rather than just the way it is now, where it's more of a cheap shot. If you've got a tally, you're probably going to kill everything that's in front of you. Now clearly, I'm not saying with this that the torps we have right now are perfectly balanced. I still think that they need to be tweaked. Doing 180s with torpedoes seems a little bit unrealistic, seeing as how even missiles in our real world are not capable of doing that. The fuel they carry is just too limited. But I still think that if a torp boat is able to get within range to lock onto and fire, that it should be very difficult to survive that, and that the game should begin at a much longer range with these types of scenarios. I really do think that this could help solve the issue of torp boats feeling too overpowered, and also help, just in general, reduce stream sniping, giving high-value targets such as myself a mechanic that's in-game that involves skill to avoid these types of scenarios. I absolutely hate the idea that the only way to deal with griefers and stream snipers is to report them. I'd rather have some way to respond in-game that involves skill so that I can make it part of the experience. But what do you guys think? How do you think CIG should go about balancing this issue? Do you think my scanner idea could be the solution, or do you have a better one? Let me know down in the comment section below. Whether you are an experienced PvP pilot or a casual gamer who has an interest in Star Citizen, I think that your opinion matters. CIG will be watching this video, I'm sure, so let's give them some valuable, actionable feedback. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Morphologist. I'll see you guys next time.